by addressing one of my pet peeve questions that comes up with almost every single client. What about this estimate?
Yeah.
A Zillow estimate is completely irrelevant because it's an algorithm, right? Computer program based purely on specs. Where are those specs pulled from? Property records. Property records are notoriously inaccurate. Okay, so if there are 3 homes on a block, they were all developed in the 1950s, they're relatively the same layout, square footage, lot size. Well, a Zillow estimate, unless there's been a recent sale and the listing's been updated, and even then it's going to be pretty inaccurate, is going to value a completely original condition home with those specs, the same as it would a completely remodeled home with those specs. There is no qualitative judgment that an algorithm can make, which is why an agent's opinion of value is very important and why Zillow and other online estimation tools are completely inaccurate. It doesn't mean that there can't be accuracy sometimes, but that's a shot in the dark. So I always tell my clients, forget that. And when you give them the explanation for, what an algorithm is and why it's not accurate, they usually accept that position and veer away from it.
But Kristen, one question.
Yes.
Isn't AI going to change it very soon? So they're going to make very qualitative assessments of houses, like before we even know it, like right on the corner, if it's not already happening?
I don't think so. And I don't care how good the AI is. They're never going to understand the human experience of walking into a home and the flow and the emotional component, which is why staging is so effective in increasing sales price. So, while it could get a little better, I don't believe that it is going to make a difference. And there's no way AI is going to say, oh, that's, $40,000 rare marble versus a really good knockoff stone. Things like that just aren't going to happen, right? That's all going to be experience. And guys, do buyers buy
Great.
what they tell you they're going to? Yeah. Miles?
Oh, sorry, that answered it. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. They don't usually buy what they say they're going to buy. And a lot of them say, I'm not in a rush. This is not an emotional decision for me. Fuck that. It's 100% emotional, which is why a really cute, really done house is going to have 15 offers even in this market. Okay. Well, as long as it's priced properly.
It is so funny watching you and watching the reverbs on the screen behind you.
Oh, it's a little delayed, huh? So, I don't believe ever that AI is going to get good enough to outsource that really key component of our job. I just don't. So I like to just address that kind of elephant in the room because almost every client that you work with will bring it up or mention it. I like to get out in front of that hurdle a lot of times when I start to work with my clients and give them the explanation of how those online algorithms work. All right, so let's talk about criteria and factors that can affect value. We will go into using price per square foot, direct comparison model, and we'll talk about which is more accurate, but why you might have to use one over the other or how you could use both. I will also go into the MLS and we will take a look at really important things and different key tools that we can use on the MLS that might benefit you in pulling better comps than another tool that's available. All right, so there's things that affect the value of a home directly, right? That would be characteristics of the home. And then I don't know if you remember from your real estate license, but you probably had the question about factors outside of the home that affect its value. Can anyone remember what that's called? External? Economic? No, but I remember, remember that. External economic factors, right? So if a home is right next to a freeway, freeway is gonna put downward pressure on the price, right? That's an external economic depreciating factor, right? Same thing with traffic that might be created from a school or a fire station or a hospital where you're gonna have ambulance noise and that sort of thing. Okay, so also, let's try something simpler. A single family home that is on a street with a bunch of multifamily where parking is tough, that doesn't have as much curb appeal, that might not have as high of a value as, the next block over. That is all single family, maybe tree lined, has a little bit more curb appeal, right? So buyers respond emotionally to the appearance of a home. But no matter how cute the home is, there can be things outside of it that affect value. So let's talk about the key components of a property, the property characteristics that affect value. What is king? What is king in property characteristics? James, you want to help?
Location.
Yeah, location is key, but I'd still call that kind of external.
Sorry, the size, location, condition.
Yeah, square footage, lot size, condition, location. These are your key, these are the leading factors in what determines value. Always, always, right? There are rare exceptions for potential value. Okay, so if you have a beat up single family on an R3 lot, nobody knows it's an R3 lot. There haven't been developments like that. I actually early on in my career used to target homes like this, neighborhoods like this that would have, R2, R3 lots with single families built on them. And I'd sell them to my developer clients and I'd make the seller very happy too. I have a little bit of an ethical issue when I'm door knocking for investor clients because first and foremost, I have a fiduciary duty to the property owner if I start working with them, right? So, a developer always wants a deal. Well, in that situation, it's kind of win-win, at least in my opinion. So I spent a lot of time working on stuff like that earlier on in my career. So there's that potential value, but that is rare. And that's usually in relation to what can be built there. Okay. So let's talk about amenities also in a home. So what kind of amenities could significantly increase value? A pool?
Gym.
Gym is just square footage. I mean, once you have rooms and square footage, a buyer's ability to do whatever they want to do with it, they're going to determine what they want to do with that square footage. Yeah, so parking is probably a key factor, right?
Here, definitely.
Right? How about accessibility? How easy the property is to get up to, right? So we have Upper Kenter is going to typically be worth less than Lower Kenter. That doesn't hold true for big view properties with large lots and a lot of amenities per se, right? But if that same property was more accessible from Sunset, a 5-minute drive versus a 15-minute drive, and had all of the same amenities in view, it would be worth more, right? So there's that. What else?
Granite countertopping.
Yeah, I mean, the condition, of course, but I don't know that granite countertop versus marble. When we're talking about LA prices, I don't know that these factors make such a difference. If you're getting into tract housing, I think that, the amenity levels can stand out a little bit more because the homes are just the same floor plans over and over again. But I think when we get into our property values, that as long as it's not gross, it doesn't affect the value that much.
Can we say appliances?
Yeah, again, in our property value range, I don't think appliances are really going to affect the value that much, guys. I mean, what's $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 worth of appliances in a $3 million house?
Right.
They'll just upgrade them if they want to, right? Now, I do work in the lower end as well. And so that could be a factor for a family who's buying an entry level. Not having appliances at all might be, something that is a big consideration for them. But again, even in what we call our lower price range, we're in a luxury market. And so it doesn't have as much value. I saw a hand over here somewhere. Yes.
Would you please, like, in this session, if possible, talk about the different, the year of build?
The year built. Okay, so here's a really important thing for you guys to know, right? New construction will always have the current year built, the year that the certificate of occupancy was issued. And it has a builder's warranty, fit and finish, top to bottom for everything for 1 year. And then for many particularly larger, more important systems for a lot longer. I don't know what those are. There are special attorneys that deal with just that. As far as the year built though, I mean, again, we're not a super old city. And people looking for older homes, they generally want that for the charm, for the look, you know, if someone's looking for a craftsman, whatnot. You have usually issues like foundation issues and stuff like that kind of thing, but that's a separate issue. We don't know about those things at the time we value property, right?
100 years. No, I mean, for example, if like true, like, because if we are submitting offer or if we want to get a listing, we should appropriate.
No, I don't take year built, I take condition. What does it matter if it was built in the 1930s, if it's been completely rehabbed, remodeled, there's new insulation, there's new HVAC? I don't care about the year built. I don't care if it's the 30s, 70s, 80s, 90s. What matters is how comfortable and how appealing it is to the widest buyer market.
And how much do you value like the remodel versus like good condition for living? Like how?
That's based on the comps that I look at. I don't decide what remodel is worth. The market decides, and I try to compare price like for like. Was there another question over here I need to get back to?
Oh, I was just asking as far as properties that sit in like historic preservation overlay zones.
So HPOZ requires that you maintain the exterior of the home in the same style and condition, and there's, I think, different committees for like permitting and things like that if you want to upgrade, but the interior you can definitely update. And a lot of times it restricts square footage in relation to the lot size, but there are square footage restrictions relating to lot size in all of LA City that I know of, and I think most of LA County. But again, that's more potential value versus actual value. When we're focusing on CMA, we're working with a seller. Most of the time, we're just appraising the current condition. And for a buyer, we're advising market value so that they can make an offer, right? So I don't think that, you know, I think for the purposes of our class today, going into potential value and hypothetical CMA for developer clients is probably a little bit higher level than we're going to discuss today.
What about the scarcity of the land? Like, for example, in Topanga, you know, like there's like rarely houses coming up. Does that have a big play?
Well, yeah. So scarcity. Yeah. I mean, Beverly Hills flats, buyers overpay all the time just to get in the flats, right? Because they don't come up that often. But again, that feeds back to location. Can anyone tell me what typically makes a location desirable?
accessibility?
Fucking schools, man. Yeah, schools all day long. Can I spend more money on my house because I don't have to send my kids to private school? Absolutely. Yeah. Accessibility, sure. But a lot of these cities that are cities that are super desirable because of the schools, they're independent cities. They also have their own police, a lot of time, their own fire, their city services are much better, right? They're better kept, they're better run, right? So overall, they're better looking, they're better planned out, they're better funded, which continues and perpetuates that cycle, right? I lived in West Hollywood, right on the border of Beverly Hills, because I didn't need Beverly Hills because I didn't have children that need to go to school. I didn't need to pay that extra $1,000 to move across the street from my house. Make sense?
Yeah.
$1,000 a month in rent, maybe two. It might have been two more. I don't know. But yeah, schools typically, people do a lot for their children, right? You live your life. A lot of people live their lives for their children. So that's very indicative of what makes an area desirable. Okay. So we talked about, condition, we talked about square footage, bedroom, bathroom count. Does bedroom, bathroom count come into play?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. If you have two homes that are the same square footage size, same lot size, will a 3-bedroom over a 2-bedroom be valued higher? Most of the time, the answer is yes. Why is that? Huh?
More space.
More living space. It appeals to more buyers because more buyers, more potential residents need 3 bedrooms than 2 bedrooms. They'll do 2 bedrooms if they need to, right? But most of them want a 3-bedroom home. Even if they have one kid, even if they're single, that extra bedroom means a lot. When I start getting into, also, I think it's worth mentioning, so lot sizes. When we get into these canyon lots, they can be 60,000 square feet. Unless they're really usable, accessible, buildable, they don't have significant value. So I want you not to fall into the trap of giving too much value to a home that has a massive lot. It's very hard to determine how much of a lot is usable. So when I start to get into, pulling a CMA for homes like this, I will try to discreetly spy on the property as much as possible. There's also, is it underbuilt? Is anyone familiar with underbuilt?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so there's a website called Underbuilt. You can pay for a report and it'll basically tell you how much of the land is buildable based on the grading. I think that it checks the city records, but it has a little disclaimer that says, that those rules and regulations can change. You can ask the homeowner, but generally I'll just say, you know what, I really need to come up and take a look at it before I can give you a value for your home.
Do architects have access to this information?
I mean, they'd probably have tools that we would be able to get access to ourselves.
Okay, they're what?
Underbuilt, underbuilt.com. Okay, so also when you're pulling a CMA, I think it's very important to verify the specs of the house, because most of the time we're pulling from title records, property records, right? Bedroom, bathroom square footage can be off, even when the square footage is permitted. So if you're working with a buyer, I hope you're a very good agent since you've been in my class. And unless there is no way on earth you can go, you have seen that property before you write the offer, before you advise them on value. And as far as drafting a CMA for a seller, I don't put a dollar amount or a range on my listing presentation and CMA package. I go in there and when I teach my listing presentation class, I'll explain to you how I do it. But I go in there with a range in my own mind, not written down. And I make sure I take a look at the property condition, because if I go in there with a range of 1.3 to 1.5 and I go in there and the house is so gross, I don't want to sit down and everything needs to be gutted, I'm probably closer to the low ones, if that. And as soon as they see 1.2 to 1.5, what do you think a seller focuses on? Or 1.3 to 1.5? What number did they focus on? 1.5. Yeah, they focus on the 1.5. So I pride myself on being really honest with my clients also. And I may have taken some overpriced listings, even though I voiced my concerns about listings being overpriced when I was earlier on in my career. But at this point, it's a business decision for me with time. And I don't want to work with a seller who is not close to where I'm at as far as the opinion on value, because it costs me money and time to try to sell that property, right? And you'll hear me in listing presentation class go through some stuff. There's still ways to work with the seller when your price is off from them. But I don't like to have that big number in mind, because the second you get in the door, your total opinion of what's there can change, right? I'm sorry, your total opinion of the value can change based on what you see there. I've definitely been in a few hoarder houses.
Right.
Yes.
So I don't know if we're gonna be able to talk about it in this class, but I'm really curious on how to kind of help the seller understand that the price needs to be at a certain level, because I have other real estate experience, and it's happened to me before where I'll take a listing the person won't listen to my guidance, then they blame me for not selling. Next thing you know, they change agents. The agent gets them to make it so much cheaper and then it sells. It's like we wasted all of our time. So-
I'll go over those, the tactics that I use in listing presentation class with you.
That's
Yeah.
another.
That's a different class.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
this
okay.
is just comparative market
Okay.
analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And it's online also if you need to study it before I get there. I think it's coming up next week. So,
Okay.
in any case, a lot can affect value. So I'll give you an example. I went on a listing appointment. I did not take this listing and I would never in a million years, fairly recently. And the square footage was like, it was a condo. It was like 1,600 square feet. I get there, 600 of those square feet are in a basement with no windows. So all of the comps that I brought for 1,600 square foot condos that are all inviting livable space. Do you think that they would have been super relevant for this condo?
No.
No. Do you think I'm going to find comps outside of the building? There were none in the building. That might be comparable though. No. So I had to exercise my discretion in determining what kind of downward pressure that placed on the value. Yes.
Unless like they would convert the basement like a home theater or something.
Even if it was cute, there's no natural light in there. It was all concrete walls. It feels like a prison. Yeah. I mean, my recommendation was, let's lighten this up. We really, really have to do this space up. But yeah.
Maybe someone wants as a studio, that's good that it's so.
Yeah.
Everyone has different needs.
What
They want the listing, maybe you. If you didn't take it, go find out who it is.
Well, the musician.
My class.
They said they didn't want it.
Okay, enough, guys, come on,
Back.
let's reel it back in. Okay, what was I gonna say? There are other factors as well that could, if you know about them, would definitely affect desirability, which ultimately affects value, right? So if it's an HOA, the health of the HOA, litigation, the kind of funding the HOA has, all of those things are gonna be a factor, right? Okay. Does anyone have any more questions about the type of things that can affect value? There are a lot more, but at the end of the day, remember, it boils down to desirability. How many buyers does this home work for and appeal to? Can we make it any more appealing working with what we have here? And
What about
that's
safety? Sorry, excuse me.
safety, like first floor condo versus third floor condo?
Or like gated community versus freestanding. No gate and no security guard.
I mean, once you start to get into super high end, I think that privacy issues become of some value, right? But I think for the most part, a single family would be considered more desirable than a gated community, but it depends on what type of gated community, what kind of price range you're talking about. So I don't think there's a hard and fast. You have to look at the relevant sales and that issue in relation to those relevant sales. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. So any more questions?
Trees,
Desirability.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the MLS then. I don't like to see my face in front of my face, behind my face in front of my face. So many versions of my face and they all have a delay. Okay, so when you are looking for comps, you're gonna go up to the search section, okay? You're gonna select listing and you're gonna select the type of listing. So for condos, we do not use single family. For single family, we do not use condo sales.
My MLS looks different. I
Or
can
you
talk to you about it
target-
later.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you.
All right, also, at least in my world, comps are only closed sales. Comps are only closed sales. Now, does that mean that active and pending homes do not have a place in the discussion? No, it doesn't mean that at all. But unless you know for a fact, like if I know of a pending home, right, that could possibly affect the value of my subject property I'm trying to give value to, I will call that listing agent. I will romance them and I will get them to cough up at least a pretty tight range typically of what that is going to close at. And or if there were any like extenuating circumstances. So that's really, really important, guys. And that's one of the things that I do with sellers that I think really knocks it out of the park. When I take my CMA, I also take a separate section of properties that are pending and active to show them their competition. I can guarantee you they know about their competition. They've been looking or they started looking if they're meeting with you. So you'd better know about them. And I handwrite notes of the information that the listing agents give to me. And I tell them about them. So I'll give you an example. I definitely got one listing in Brentwood once because there was a beautiful home of similar spec, but with completely flat usable land. And the property I was going on a listing appointment for, it had very little usable land. And it was closing very, very low. And somehow everyone knew about the price. Okay. And so I told my seller that could be a problem for most buyers, but I knew exactly why that was the case. It was because it was riddled with mold and there was a $250,000 credit off of the price for mitigation. And I would make sure that any buyer that came in was aware of that sale and what was going on with it and why it wasn't relevant to our value. Okay, so it wasn't a completely comparable sale, but I knew people were going to bring it up. Well, why would I pay this for this house when this one clearly has a better feature? Well, that price is low. It would have sold significantly higher, but it had a major mold issue. Okay, so here we are, search screen. All right, so gosh, which one do I like to use? Greenfield. Hold on a second. $2,708. Okay. All right. So I like to use this bar here at the top. And I like to enter my subject property address into it. Particularly when I'm not familiar with the area, I like to do this right in the beginning. Guys, get familiar with the areas you're trying to do CMAs on, drive them. This job is hard. It requires a lot of homework. I mean, sometimes CMAs are really easy, but sometimes they are not. And you need to get out into the field and take a look. You need to talk to people who know the area. It requires a lot of work. And like I said, you know, being able to support your position on the value is really important to your success and also trust with your client. Because the buyer is always going to think it's worth less, right? And the seller is always going to think it's worth more anyways. You already have an uphill battle. So you have to know what you're talking about. And I don't like to tell my clients no, I like to show them. And so if I know what I'm talking about and I show them, it makes it a whole lot easier. They can't really argue with the photo, even though they can argue with me, right? Okay, so I sold a single family home at 2708 Greenfield a couple of years ago. And I think it's one of the very best examples that I've ever seen for geographic barriers. Okay, so I never, ever use the radius search when I'm pulling comps for a property. You guys know what the radius search is? Yeah. Why is that? Well, because particularly in Los Angeles, a lot of times streets, highways, other, you know, landmark, what would I call that? Landmark features? I don't know. There are really strong geographical barriers that affect value, even within the same city in Los Angeles, even within the same zip code, right? So I like to hand draw. And so unless you drove around this neighborhood or you're really familiar with it, or you really, really study the maps, You wouldn't necessarily know this, but for this property, it's half a block north of the 10, right? Okay. It has the Expo line. You see these little blue squares? That's the Expo Metro line. Okay. We have Sepulveda and the 405 here and Westwood Boulevard. These are all pretty major streets and defining like cutoff for value. This side of Westwood is Rancho Park. Rancho Park has higher value than this part of West LA. Okay. Also, a home that is 2.5 blocks away from the 10 is going to be worth more than a home half a block from the 10 freeway if all, given specs were the same, right? So you have to think about that when you are qualifying property to be considered as a comp. So I like to select draw, and this little tool that looks like a house, the polygon tool, I'll select that. And then I like to hand draw my borders. Okay, so for me, I'm going to use Westwood Boulevard, the Expo line, and Sepulveda. This is a very small area for comps. This home was very difficult for me to comp out because there weren't a whole lot of sales at the time. And most of the sales that I did see were up here, just like we're seeing now. And remember, the property value is going to be better because it's not right on top of the freeway, right? So I just wanted to illustrate why looking at the map and hand drawing is so important as far as what property you're going to include. And this tool is really amazing. Let's say I changed my mind and I want to move this barrier up to Pico. I can do all of these things.
How does it stop moving for you? Every time I click and it keeps going. It's just a click by you. I'm seeing it just clicking.
You have to take that to the number one. Yeah, you have to close the polygon.
Right, I did that.
So once you close it, like click back on one. And by the way, guys, when you are looking, you can set up more than one of these maps in the same search. You can set up buyer searches this way also. This tool is available for all types of searching. So you can name them, you can save whatever you've hand drawn, because some of them are like Beverly Hills, right? Near Robertson, the city borders get kind of choppy there. So once you draw something, it's there forever if you save it. All right, so then what would I typically do? Okay, so I'm going to.
Can you draw another one on the same page?
Yeah. I forget how to do it, but you save it and then you can put a second one on. I don't have to do that very often, but there is a way. If you call the MLS help desk, they're really great with all of those things. All right, let me see here. All right, so as far as a home goes, square footage is going to be really important. If I remember correctly, this house is pretty small, which made it also very difficult to comp. I think it was probably about 1,200, 1,300 square feet. So when I am working with less square footage, I want my range of comps, if possible, to be tighter. So if I'm working with 1,200 square feet, I probably want to look, if I'm able to, 1,000 to 1,400 square feet. If I'm working with a home that's 5,000 square feet, am I okay at looking 4 to 6? Absolutely, right? Also, same thing with bedroom and bathroom count. Once I get to about 5 bedrooms, I don't really care if it's 5 or 6. Okay? Once I get into 3 to 4 bathrooms, I don't really care unless the bathroom count's really high, right? There just needs to be an adequate amount. Is there a massive difference between 2 bathroom and 1 bathroom? Absolutely,
Yes.
right? How about 2 and 3? Probably, but when we get to 3, 4, 4, 5, it's not as important. Okay, so I'd lean more onto square footage at that point. Also, lot size is going to play a role, well, it's not going to play a role in condos, okay? But it's going to play a massive role in single family value because yard is, something that's very desirable for people. Let's say it's the 6,000 square foot lot. I probably am willing to look, 55 to 65. I might go higher or lower if I need to. This is stuff you need to play with and exercise your judgment because you might not get enough results, okay? You might not get any results at all, Whoops. Weird, not casting. Oh. Going, sorry, guys, I lost the casting connection here in the office. What's that? Yeah, I think we might need to do that. So another key factor, like we're selecting only sold properties, right? Like I said, there is information that's valuable for properties that aren't sold, but I don't include them in my CMA because until it's a closed sale, or I know for sure what price it's gonna close at and it's gonna close soon, it's gonna actually affect value, I won't include it in my CMA.
How far back do you?
That's what I'm gonna go into next. It won't cast.
It's not happening.
No,
Let me see here.
it just stopped all of a sudden and then it was saying it was having difficulty
Did you do it
connecting.
before?
Yeah. Watch, it's gonna work because you're here now. Works for me? Yes. Me.
So I'm just gonna stand here.
Yeah.
Stand here.
For the next half hour. Just in case.
All right, so these statuses, like I said, I select sold. And you see this date range that pops up here? It automatically pops up with a 3-month range. I'm okay to go back 6 to 12 months, depending upon what I need to do. So if you click this little blue box, you can select the option for last 6 months or last 12 months. I already know I have a very small geographical area that I'm working with, so I'm already gonna go to 12 months. And guys, how many comps would you kind of cap out at? Let's say you had 20 great comps. Would you use them all?
No.
How many?
4 or 5
I'd say 5 to 10.
to 10.
5 to 10, depending on how good they are. You might want to use more when when there's not a great comparison, just to illustrate high and low ranges. How many do I need to be happy?
5.
1. I need 1 really good comp. If there's only 1, there's only 1. If there's 2, great. If there's 3, great. Because if that's all that exists, that's all that exists. I'm not going to force a square peg into a round hole. I'm not doing it. Why would I introduce a comp that is not comparable? On a great occasion, you will not be able to find a comp. Okay, that does happen. If that is the case, you'd probably want to work with a neighborhood expert, like, pick someone's brain. You can hold broker price opinions, things like that. You can take your best stab at it. You would, no more casting.
Connection loss.
You would try to give it a price range value, and then you would try to add to the price or reduce from the price depending upon what the amenities or the things that didn't compare were. I'm trying to cast. I'm trying. Screen training room. Yay. All right. So I'm gonna apply a year. Yeah, if I only have 1 great comp,
Oh,
I only have 1 great comp. If I have 1 great comp and 4 more good comps, would I use that? Absolutely. But if I have 1 great comp and no other comps that are really relevant, I only have 1. If I have 20, I'm going to try to pick the best 5 to 10. I mean, if I have 10 really great ones, I'm going to include the 10. There's no reason for me to exclude stuff that's really great. I don't think I've ever been in a situation where I have 20 great comps. How about for a condo, guys? I want to stay in the building if I can. I want to stay in the building if I can. I might even go 2 years back and adjust for property value increase year over year. Because why?
Because they're different.
The building amenities, the condition of the building, yeah. So if I'm doing a condo and I'm trying to use comps outside of the building, I might have to do so sometimes, and it's going to be beneficial if I have nothing else. right? But like if you have an 8-unit building and nothing's sold in there for 6 years, do you have to go outside of the building? Absolutely.
Is there an equation for adjusting the comp value if you have to go further back? Or is it,
You would look at the average property value increase for that type of property in that area year over year. And you would add that to what you think a comparable sale from, 3 years ago would comp that. But that's not very accurate. And by the way, guys, when it becomes very difficult to comp things, I walk my clients through my methodology, why it's difficult to comp, what it would be, why I'm giving them a larger price range. I'm showing them. I'm explaining to them, I'm showing them where I got the information I'm using, such as the year over year property value increase, that type of thing. So yeah, condos, I try to stay within the building if I can, because otherwise I have to try to comp the building and the unit. At the end of the day, though, I will tell you this, condos buyers, they care more about the condition of the interior than they do the building typically. But that can change, particularly with like really, really high level, full service building and amenities, right? I don't know why our casting is got so many problems, guys.
You can do without it.
Do it without it? Okay,
On the Zoom, you will see.
okay, I'll just do it without it. Okay, so I'm gonna put in some square footage and bathroom counting. This is a 3-bedroom, so I'm gonna call it a 3-bedroom. 2 baths, so I'm gonna say 2 bath. You see these boxes for exactly? When your bedroom and bathroom count to you is very important, you're gonna wanna check them for exactly. Otherwise, you can put a range in here, or if it was 3 or more. So like I said, once I get into that 5, 6 range, I don't particularly care. At that point, I care more about the square footage because like we talked about earlier, amenities in a single family, like a gym, nobody cares. They care about the square footage because a buyer is going to do with that space what they want to once you start to get into larger spaces, right? What can be done though, is it can be staged or furnished in a way that's very emotionally appealing to a buyer. So having a gorgeous staged gym might result in a higher sales price, not because it was a gym, but because of the way it made the buyer feel, because of the way the buyer envisioned their life living in this home, right? Which is why staging and presentation are so important. Okay, so you can see in the last year, just with the bedroom bathroom count, I haven't even put in square footage yet. And it's very important. I'm not going to put it in for the purposes of this class, but you would want to when you're pulling comps for something. What I'm going to do, let's just say all of these comps, meet at least what I believe is my basic criteria of the bedroom, bathroom, my square footage and lot range, my proximity to all of these geographic borders that really affect value in the area. So I'm going to view listings now. And this is the part where you really exercise your discretion, guys, because you're going to read every single MLS listing. You're going to read the agent private remarks. If something seems like it sold super high or super low, you're going to call the listing and the buyer agent, and you're going to find out, was there something that affected value? Just like an appraiser would, okay? Because you need to know these things.
You usually get answers to that.
Yes.
That's after the sale.
Yeah, a lot of times I'll get it during the sale. I will not be fully honest. So you are a listing agent of a home that's going to be competition for my upcoming listing. You're a block away. I'm going to call you up and tell you one of my family members is considering selling a block away from your listing. I'd really love if you share information with me. Like, I see that you accepted an offer about 2 weeks ago. Can you tell me how your escrow is going? I don't feel like my family is really all that realistic when it comes to property value. It'd be so helpful to me if you'd be willing to share like a range. Did you get over your list price? Start like making it gentle. I'm sure it's a great listing. I'm sure you had buyers come in. I'll be sure I'll keep your info. I'll make sure that I get you into the house before anyone else does.
Nice.
Why do I say it's my family? So that they don't go shopping trying to find that listing. Yeah, so that's my lie. And you better believe I write down their name and number and I make sure I give them the opportunity to go in there first because they did me a favor. I want to do them a favor back. Exactly. And also, even at the end of the day, if they have no one, I want to be an agent of my word. because I want them to give me information next time I call them. Right? Also, if something doesn't work for my property, I am totally good about sending, people come to my open house down the street to the other one on the market. We are here to help each other. At the end of the day, me sending them down to the other house is not gonna mean they don't buy my house, right? They're gonna buy whichever listing makes more sense for them. So, we do collaborate, and you should give your fellow agents that kind of courtesy. All right, so I read all of these listings. I go into agent detail full. I read all of them. Everything. Like I said, I call, use Waze. What an ass for directions. Don't make yourself publicly an ass. Who is it? So look, read everything, call if you need to. If something has an exceptionally high or low price, pull up the photos, look at every single one. Okay, because you're gonna exercise your discretion. Unfortunately, this only has one photo. You're gonna exercise your discretion majorly in how the property condition compares to the property condition of your subject property you're trying to find value for. Okay, so I'm gonna go through one by one. And even if a home doesn't have super similar, like they're all way nicer or way less nice, that at least gives me a range to work with, right? It gives me my high end and my low end. I know that the property is going to be less than these that just sold that are in way better condition. I know that it's going to be worth more than this one that just sold in worse condition. So let's say I cannot find, sometimes you'll have a subject property that is significantly larger or smaller than the rest of the homes in the neighborhood. In this instance, I want to stay in the neighborhood. And what I'll do is I will look outside of the square footage specs. And I'll try to find something of very, very similar condition. I'll try to find more than one thing of similar condition. And I'll use a much less accurate method, okay? Because this is the only method available to me at that point in time. This is never your go-to. You always want to try to do direct comparison valuation for property. It's the price per square foot method. So you'll get your sold price per square foot, okay? And I'm hoping that the lot sizes are the same. Typically, when you're finding a home that's of significantly more or less square footage, it's still lots in the same neighborhood typically are around the same size. Not always, so check that, but usually. And so I'll use the price per square foot. So if I see 4 homes, right, that are in very similar condition to my subject property, but they're all significantly larger or smaller, I will take their price per square foot. I will typically average them out and I will apply it to my subject property. I give a much larger range when I am forced to use this method because it is much less accurate. Okay, much
And a
less
regular comp.
than direct comparison comp, right? And again, you have to exercise your discretion by looking at the photos, looking at the location, right? Something that has, there can also be like one thing that changes significantly the value of something, right? Because it affects desirability. You can have a home that is right next to the grossest house on the block, right? With cars parked out in their front yard, and a large multifamily building next door to it. And across the street, the other side of the block is all beautiful single family homes. You won't run into this often because of zoning, but stuff like that can happen. Would the home between the gross house and the multifamily be worth as much as a house across the street if it was exactly the same? Probably not as desirable, so it'd probably sell for less, right? Yeah. Okay, so there's that methodology. Then you can, let's say you cannot find a home of significant condition or significant spec. You cannot find comps for it, okay? So I don't even know how to do this. I've never done this. But an appraiser would try to find value, basically lot value. Okay. They would try to give it a price per square foot value, like a base level, and then they would price it with amenities. And there is a certification class through CAR that can help you to calculate values for amenities like features, but I don't think it's very accurate. I don't think it's very accurate. And I would, there's a reason I've never used this. I also have one last trick that I use if I can't find comps, is I will go to my title rep and I will ask for a list of the off-market sales that have taken place. And I'll use the specs from those, although I won't necessarily know the condition of those homes, right? I won't know what it looks like, but at least I can try to find something with specs. And I can use that price per square foot method, although it's not as accurate.
Is there ever a time where getting an actual appraisal would be a good idea?
So there are different types of appraisers. Okay. Can you help me with this one, Errol? There are different certification levels for appraisers. So the type of appraiser that a bank is going to use is going to be a lot more skilled and high level and use certain method and be much better at it than just your run of the mill appraiser. What kind of certification is that?
I mean, the top certification is a general.
Okay.
Yeah, they can appraise pretty much anything.
Okay, so yeah, if my clients wanted an appraisal, I would recommend that they got a really, really high level appraiser out there for that reason. Okay, so I know there's no like magic formula or perfect number or perfect methodology for pulling CMA, but do you guys understand well enough at all the factors that I look at, how I exercise my own judgment as far as condition? And this really comes down to desirability. And this is why you need to be going to brokers opens. You need to be paying attention to what's on the market, even if you don't have clients, what's active, what's pending, what's sold, what it's sold for, all those types of things. You need to be aware of these things so that when it comes time for you to accurately provide a comparative market analysis, you have your finger on the pulse, you're aware of the market, you're aware of home trends, and you're able to do so accurately. So I know it's an art, it's not a science. Just want to make sure that we're all kind of on the same page as to what we look at and how to exercise your discretion. When in doubt, guys, who can you go to help check yourself?
You?
Mentor, me, another agent in the office, absolutely. Yeah, I have no problem. If I have the time, I will stop and look at any of those things for you guys. And you should all be willing to do the same. But first and foremost, if you're trying to pull a CMA, I would try to find an agent that really does a lot of business in that area that's within the office. And because they're just going to be that much more likely to know things that an agent who doesn't do a lot of business in that area would. All right. Any more questions, guys?
I have a question.
Sure.
How do you find out like how much to add or subtract from a comp property? Like say if that comp property has a pool, but the subject property doesn't, but it's still a good comp to use. How do you figure out what value to add or subtract?
Standard pool, depending upon how new the home is and how nice things are, generally would add or subtract 50 to 100K.
Okay, and then like even like for in-home stuff, like say like a garage to not a garage, or just kind of those things.
And if you're interested in stuff like that, taking that CAR course that talks about the amenities and assigning them value. But again, in a market like Los Angeles, where external factors so heavily influence value, and once we get into this price, like presentation, so much affects value. I don't know that it's going to be that accurate.
Okay.
I don't know that it's going to be that accurate, but when all else fails for me, I hold broker price opinion, where I invite agents in the neighborhood that do a lot of business in the neighborhood to please come and check out the house and give me their opinion of value and what the strong points and the weak points of the home are.
That's after you listen.
No, usually before. I'll usually get you have to trust your client.
Yeah.
But hey, if I can't get the pricing right and we can't agree on it, I'm not going to end up with the listing anyhow, right?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, I don't have a better answer for that. It's art. It's not science. You really, really have to pay attention to the market.
Yeah, no, that helped.
Any more questions, guys? How about Cloud CMA? Do you know Cloud CMA? Okay, there's a Cloud CMA plugin right into the MLS. So once you select which properties you want to say, oh yeah, this property, this is a good comp, I'm going to use this. Or this is a relevant comp, I'm going to use this. You select it and there's a plugin at the top of the MLS. Here, I'll go back to sharing my screen. Okay, so viewing listings. Now I've selected a couple of listings, okay, randomly. I come up here. Do you see this Cloud CMA? Those of you at home? I select it and I say create CMA. It pulls all of the
Yes,
information.
yeah, we see it.
And it compiles a report on a super easy to use, free for everyone who's a member of the MLS tool that you all have access to, that you can personalize with your information, photos. You can even select colors and things like that. It gives you the ability to preview it. It has little icons with eyeballs on it where you can take a look at it. So if you've never played with Cloud CMA, I highly recommend that you go into Cloud CMA, you modify it, you take a look at it. You can create templates so that there's certain information included with different types of CMAs you might pull, maybe one for a buyer versus one for a listing appointment, that type of thing. I always encourage you to use Cloud CMA until you are so far along in your career that you want to take the extra time to go manually enter everything into a more advanced CMA system. And just use what's available, you know. I do want to warn you that about once a year, I run into a glitch where I might select 10 listings and only 9 of them are populating. Okay, so that does happen, so pay attention to that and you can manually enter it if you need to.
About like county assessor website.
Yes, sorry.
On the 11th, there is a training for with Jose Quintila. He did all about Cloud CMA. If that's recorded, then you can watch that.
Here at the MLS. So thank
Good
you,
one.
it's very valuable information.
It's when?
The 11th, I think you said, Sylvester?
Yeah, it was on the 11th with Jose Quintila, something like that.
What was your question? Sorry. Okay. Unless we have any more questions, that's it for today. Oh, if you were in mentorship, go do practice CMA with your mentor. Pull a Cloud CMA. Don't just pull the properties, try to pull the presentation together.
Can I ask one more question? It's a bit off the subject. And I probably
Yeah.
asked it before.
Real quick, Miles, before you ask your question, I want to let everyone know that on Monday, which is the 1st, Monday, May 1st, we're having a mentor-mentee mixer on the balcony at 3 p.m.
What does that mean?
Come get drunk with us. Well, not me.
So basically, it'll be a great way for the mentees to understand what other mentees are in the program and to connect with the mentors as well. Kristen hopefully will be there.
I will absolutely be there. Justin and I will be there. We'll just hang out. You can all get to know each other. You can meet all of the other mentors. It's just a chance for us to catch up, talk about things relevant to us and get to know each other better. Just a fun event for mentors, mentees. It's just our mixer. We never had one. We're having one. That's here.
This
Monday at 3 p.m.
On the balcony.
Okay, Miles, what's your question?
So I know from one of the asks, it's kind of hearsay to walk through a property and then post it on your Instagram to show people it. How does that work? Because I see people like friends of mine who post listing after listing or like property after property, and are like, there's no way they have $14 million house after $10 million house after $10 million house.
For permission.
What was that?
That's the listing information for permission to post their listing.
Okay, that's it. That's the etiquette.
They
Okay,
may
thank
ask
you.
that you credit them on social media, listed by such and such, but it's all publicly available. At the end of the day, even if you didn't have their permission and they were, your biggest concern is that they're mad at you and it damages your potential relationship with them. There's no law against it. It's all publicly available. So,
There's no reason not to.
yeah, there's no reason,
By this person and,
yeah,
you know, I'm sure they'd want the extra exposure if they could get it, right?
yeah, I mean, anytime I have a listing, you are all welcome to repost it. Please fucking sell that for me.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, you know, and okay, thank you, that clears up a lot.
If you want to go take shots of the property, that takes a little more
Yeah.
permissions, like video, or like if we want to do.
I don't, video it, do it,
It really depends.
put it in the world, get that sold.
And listen, we look like courtesy of Christen Tull.
Sure, listen,
That's what I'm
and,
trying
you know,
to
most
do.
people do it way at the very bottom after hashtags and things like that, so that people don't notice. And it leads your viewers to thinking that it's your listing, even though you've credited it to someone else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, guys, any more questions?
Thank you.
No, okay, you're welcome. Bye, guys. Thank you.
That's it, thank you.
Thanks,
Ciao,
Kristen.
ciao.
Bye.
Thanks, Kristen.
Tomorrow, 12:30, my makeup residential listing agreement. You're welcome.
What are you teaching tomorrow?
Residential listing agreement. I'm making it up tomorrow at 12:30.
All right, cool, perfect.
Okay, that's it. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
I needed one.